Welcome, everyone, to PA Today and Friends. We are blessed to be here in beautiful Monaca, Pennsylvania. I'm your host, John Magusiak, owner and founder of PA Today Sports. We are blessed to be here in beautiful Monaca, Pennsylvania. We are coming to you from the Monaca Brewing Company. Special thank you to James Kazel and Kylie Kazel for allowing us to use their beautiful establishment. This show is sponsored by 31 Event Rentals. As I stated before, we are in Monaca, Pennsylvania, so this is a special edition. It's only right we check in with Central Valley, so we have head coach Mark Lyons in the building with 3 of his upperclassmen starters. They're going to be joining the show after Coach Mark. But first, let's get into this past week's WPIAL action. I want to start in 6A. I try to make the lower classifications the games of the week because they usually don't get a lot of it. But this time, this game, it was necessary. It was the game of the century. It was Central Catholic versus North Allegheny. They're both undefeated. Someone's had to go. In Wexford, we found out Friday night. Friday night North Allegheny started out strong. They started out with a 3-and-out, forcing Central Catholic to punt the ball away. And Tyree Alualu, he had it going on the ground all night. He started out strong. He punched it in for North Allegheny to start. They started out the game. They went out for their 2-point conversion, so it was an 8-0 lead to start that game. Central answers back right away, and they go for 2. They get the 2. It's an 8-8 game at this point. Now, at this point, it's an 8-8 game. The energy's high. The building was full for this one. The student sections were filled. You couldn't get in there if you were coming at 7 o'clock. It was a 7:30 game. So as we go down the line here, it just really came down to depth in this game. We had an 8-8 game. Central strikes again. They score on it was on a Faulkner touchdown. And then North Allegheny has some opportunities. They missed on a few opportunities, but they actually struck back. Logan Kushner had a nice run. I think it was about 30 yards out. I don't know off the top of my head, but it was about from 30 yards out, and that put them back on the board and made it a 15-15 game. Now, after that, it kind of started to roll all downhill for Central. They started to use that depth. They started to run those lines in and out the way they do. And Cole Sullivan and Anthony Specca, they are just special players. There was a play where Cole Sullivan, he made the tackle, forced the fumble. Anthony Specca picked it up, and he took it down to the 3-yard line for Faulkner to punch it in. That was a big momentum shift. And then Cole Sullivan and Peyton Wayner, along with, Bobby Fadden and Jay Rona down in 2A, but in 6A, they're playing in the biggest conference. They're cousins. It might be the best cousin tandem we have in all the WPIAL. Peyton Wayner and Cole Sullivan. They put on a performance. Those two have a great connection. You could tell their family. They had 2 touchdowns together on the night. Peyton threw for 2, and they were both to Cole Sullivan. So at the end of the day, what this game came down to, in my opinion, was depth. Central Catholic has the ability to run 4 or 5 players in and out constantly. And those 3, 4, 5, backup position players, they're playing at a high level. They're playing at almost that level that the starter is. And that's what gives them that advantage. So I hear a lot of talk. Should Central be playing a national schedule? It definitely should be a conversation. But for now, we keep them where they are. They prove themselves. If they become very dominant in the future, then yes, they should play a national schedule. But for now, they got to win a WPIAL championship and a 6A PIAA state championship. So until they do that, I don't think we should talk about the national schedule part. So I want to get into more games that happened this past week. Aliquippa versus West Allegheny. It seems to always be a matchup year in and year out. It's just a gritty, hard-fought matchup. Both Cornells, I'm going to say both of them guys. Brock Cornell's the older one, but Brody Cornell, those guys are just straight-up football players. They come to play football. every time they step between those lines. And I really, really enjoy watching those guys just play the game of football because you can see it. They love the game. It's in their heart, and they have it. They came up short. Aliquippa did defeat them 29-22. And I have to give a major shout-out to Quentin Cheesegood, Aliquippa's starting quarterback. I mean, look, he drove them down the field and threw the game-winning touchdown to Brandon Banks. It was a big moment for Quentin Good to step up and show he is a real-deal top 10 quarterback in the WPIL. The way he's playing right now, I have no problem making that statement. As we move down the line, Avonworth took care of business against South Park as they should, 38-0. They moved to 5-0. They have looked very impressive, and you'll hear them soon as we go over the power rankings at the end of the show. I don't want to spoil that, though. Bethel Park took care of business against Baldwin, 50-13. Bethel has a very good team, and I think they went under the radar a little bit. I think people are forgetting about Tanner Pfeiffer and Ryan Petrus and the connection they have, along with guys like Clancy Ori. I mean, they got guys all over the place at Bethel. So the connection that Tanner Pfeiffer and Ryan Petrus has is just unbelievable. Those two, you could tell they work a ton in the offseason together, and not only that, they spend a lot of time together as friends. So that's an important thing on the field there. So as we roll down here, Central Valley took care of business over Newcastle, 42-14. So they bounce back. They get that big, important W. We'll talk to Coach here in a few. We're going to get more into that, so I don't want to get too much into that game as we have him coming on. Chartiers Valley versus Blackhawk. This was a big game for both of these teams because they really needed a win. Chartiers Valley took care of business. They won 26-14. That's a big, big win for Coach Fitzpatrick over there at Chartiers Valley to just get one on the board there, and especially, against a Blackhawk team there. Clairton takes care of business against Leechburg, 42-14. I think Clairton, they're going to come on late in 1A. They have a ton of young guys. As you saw last year, they were playing a lot of freshmen and sophomore. They have a ton of young guys on that team that are just total studs. As they develop, as they grow into their bodies, and as their football IQ grows, you're going to see Clairton, they're going to be right back at the top where they were because they do have a special 2026 class. Cornell, man, they got to be our surprise team of the year. No one saw this coming under Coach Ed Dawson. Talked to him last week. He's just a great guy, great coach. Really enjoyed speaking with him. And he said, look, man, everybody in the Whippeal is surprised except us. And that's the way it should be. You should never think you're going to lose. Cornell's been going out there taking care of business. They took down my number one ranked Union team. And ever since, they're 5-0. They're just rolling at this point. As we move along here, Elizabeth Forward is a team I'd like to talk about in 5A. They lose Coach Mike Colautti, who's a good friend of mine. He's doing great things in Mount Lebanon now. But they lose Coach, and new coach steps in. It's like they don't miss a beat. I mean, they got Chris Climbs up front offensively and defensively. He's just an absolute monster. He's a guy to be on the lookout for when you're anytime you tune into Elizabeth Forward game, you definitely want to look for Chris Climbs because he's throwing people around all night. But that's a team that's really stepping up. Fort Cherry took care of business in a major way against Olsh, 42-0. That was a major statement win in my opinion. Matt Sieg is one of the best players in the WPIL. Forget classification. I'm going on the record right now, and I'm going to say it. Congratulations to Matt Sieg. He just picked up his first Division I offer from the university or Penn State University. That is big, man. I knew it was only a matter of time before he got that offer. So, Matt Sieg, congratulations to you on picking your first Division I offer up from Penn State. They took care of business. I mean, Our Lady of Sacred Heart, they are no joke. They got a great quarterback. They're down some guys right now. You know what I mean? And when you're in 1A and you lose guys, it's going to hurt a bit. So that might have had something to do with it. But Fort Cherry's taking care of business, and you'll hear about them in the power rankings as we move down. Franklin Regional, they take care of Shaler 55-7. And in my opinion, this is a statement victory. I mean, everybody was big on Shaler. They were undefeated. Keegan Spectanka, he throws for a ton of yards every year. We know what he's going to do. But Franklin Regional has that defense, and they've had that defense. What they haven't had is that offense that clicks. and is able to get the ball moving down the field. But it seems they were able to do that this game, and they got the W. A guy like Austin Kearns for Franklin Regional, he's a guy that he's a class of 2025 player. He's a linebacker. You'll see him a little bit on offense, but I would say he's the leader on that defense. He makes so many tackles. He flies to the ball, and he's great at getting his head on the football. As we move along down, Gateway over Plum. I think Gateway's coming on at a great time. They're in 5A. They had a rough start. They were without Brad Birch for a game or two. They took care of Plum 49-14. I see Gateway being a team that does nothing but, their stock's just going to continue to rise. Hampton sends a strong message. Hampton beats Armstrong 32-27, and I talked to some of the Aliquippa people, and they thought that Armstrong was the best team that they faced so far. So that says a lot to me when the Quips are given, credit like that. So that's a big message win for Hampton there. Almonte Christian and Sarah got postponed, so we won't talk about that. Jeanette takes care of business over Charleroi, 35-7. That's a team in 1A. They're coming on. They're going to be a playoff team. They're going to be dangerous, man. They got Paynes Hollins Moulter. He's a quarterback. He's playing both ways, just a terrific athlete. McGuffey, they take down an undefeated Waynesburg Central team, 26-7. McGuffey's a team. They have Logan Carlisle, just a terrific athlete. Waynesburg's a team that they're still young, but they have some pieces that in that upper class, but they're still young and they still need to get some experience. So this is one that really didn't shock me a whole lot because McGuffey has that experience up front. So McGuffey took care of business there, 26-7. McKeesport is a team in 4A that is to be reckoned with. A lot of people thought McKeesport was going to fall off because they lost to Bobby Boyd. They lost Perryman. But McKeesport's a team that always reloads. They don't rebuild. Cayman Spell, he's one of the best class of 2027 running backs in the WPIL right now. He showed that through the first 5 games, and we have to give him his due. So big shout out to him over at McKeesport as they take down Trinity 35-7. Mohawk, ever since that loss to Union, and they had Union beat through basically the whole game until I think there was 2 minutes left. Union came back, they scored that final touchdown. But Mohawk's been a 2A team that's coming on of late. Jay Rona, Bobby Fadden over there. We'll run down their stats here in a little bit. But those are another cousin tandem that is to be on the lookout for. Dante Retort, he's a heck of a defensive back, first team defensive back coming back for them. And then Jay Rona, a quarterback, he's a true dual threat. Last year he wasn't able to run as much because he was coming back from a collarbone injury. But this year he's able to scramble, he's able to tuck and run, and he has a great arm as he's already committed to Youngstown State as a baseball player. Neshannock, how about those Lancers? In 2A, here they come. They lose to a tough Sharon team in week 0. But ever since, Fred Mazzacchio, in my opinion, he has done one of the best jobs in the WPIL over the last 15 years. He came into a Neshannock program that really they didn't have a football program established. I played against that program my whole life. They never had a football program established until that man came in there. He came in, he changed the culture. They're out there at 5 a.m. working. They love Coach Mazzacchio. They finally get over the hump. They take care of business, and they beat Beaver Falls 27-26 in overtime. That is a big win for the Neshannock Lancers. Shout out to them getting over that hump. As we move along, Penn Hills takes down 34-9, so they rebound after that loss to Moon last week. I mean, Moon's a team that's coming on in 5A. I talked with Coach Ryan Lynn last week, and he said to his guys before that game, look, guys, we're closer to 3-0 than we are 0-3 because they had a lot of close contests, and I really liked the way he put that. So his team and the morale is still very high in that building. Peters Township, they are a team we must talk about. Peters Township took care of Upper St. Clair 31-0 this past week, and you'll hear about them in the power rankings. We'll get more into that, and I'll elaborate more. But Nolan DeLucia, Reston Lehman, they just have talent all over the field, and it's young talent too, so they're going to be a team to reckon with in 5A for years to come. Pine Richland takes care of business over Fox Chapel 50-0. Seton LaSalle over Hopewell 42-7. I know a lot of people were probably surprised about Seton LaSalle being 4-1 at this point. I'm not. I was out there this summer. They have upperclassmen and guys like O'Malley Daly. They have an Eric White, a Gary Smith. They have those upperclassmen, Carson Barone, another piece. They have those upperclassmen that fill those, the experience. What they had come in was the Khalil Taylors, the Nelson Colemans, the Will Martins. Those guys came in. Will Martin's a 2026 guy, I believe, but Khalil Taylor and Nelson are 2027 guys. Those guys came in and they made an impact from day one they were in that program. So nothing but respect for Coach Tim Storino and what he's doing over there at Seton LaSalle. The Rebels are a team to be reckoned with, and you might just hear about them in the power rankings at the end of the show. Headed down the line, a big win for Shenango, 18-6 over Rochester. That is a huge win for Shenango. That's a section win. Rochester's a great coach team under Gene Matsu, who we all know is a legend. So for Shenango to take care of business over Rochester, that's a statement win in 1A. As we move along, Southside Beaver, in 1A, everybody should be scared at this point. They take care of business against a Quaker Valley team 47-7, but what's to be more talked about is the non-section games they played. We'll talk about that more in the power rankings, but Southside Beaver is back, and I expect them to be a 1A team that has a deep run into the playoffs. Still Valley takes care of business over Ligonier Valley 35-0. Thomas Jefferson and Bell Vernon was one of the game. It was the .22 game of the week, and it was a great game. Thomas Jefferson ended up coming out on top, 24-19 over Bell Vernon, and this one was one for the books. I advise you guys to go back and watch that game. It was great. As we go down over the last few games here, Union takes care of business over Laurel, 33-14. So they bounce back. That's a big win over a Laurel team. It's always big up front, no matter who they return. I know they lost a lot of guys, but they're always big up front. University Prep, we'll talk a little City League ball. They take care of Wheeling Central Catholic 36-17. So they bounce back after that Westinghouse loss. Washington stays undefeated, taking care of Brentwood 47-6. I really like Eddie Lewis down there. He's a heck of a running back, and they got a good team down there. West Mifflin, they take care of a tough Beaver team. West Mifflin seems to be coming on. Under Coach Steele, he's been there before. He's been around forever. I think he's one of the best coaches when it comes to run game in the WPIL. So West Mifflin's coming on at the right time. Western Beaver takes care of Elwood City. Elwood City has a really good back in Elijah Palmer McCain. And, he's just a really good back, so they contained him. Javen Peel, a freshman at Western Beaver, he's among the passing leaders in the WPIL right now, so keep an eye on him. I worked with him a little bit this past summer, he, as a quarterback, and he really developed a lot over this past offseason. He's a guy that goes to Lincoln Park, but due to their co-op program, he plays for Western Beaver. West Green takes care of Bentworth 39-6. And Woodland Hills over Norwin. This is the last game we're going to talk about. This was a battle, man. And there was a lot of controversy at the end of this game. Was he in? Was he not in? The replay shows he might have been in for a touchdown, but the officials called no good on the field. They called him short. So at the end of the day, you always got to go with what the Foot Lockers call, unfortunately. Even if it's not the right call, they have the last call. Was it the right call? We don't know. You can watch the replay back, and you can tell us for yourself in the comments. But Woodland Hills, at the end of the day, defeats Norwin 30-23 in a must-win victory, in my opinion. And that's this week's wrap-up with PA Today and Friends. At this time, I'd like to give them a proper introduction. We're in Monaca, Pennsylvania, so it was only right that the first episode we featured Coach Mark Lyons from the Central Valley Warriors. He's the head coach, 3-time state champion, 5-time WPIL champion. We had to give you a proper introduction. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for doing it.
Absolutely. Appreciate to be here. Thank you.
This is my first time talking to Coach, so I'm really excited for this. The first thing I want to ask you is, so let's take it back to when these schools merged, 2010. You had some great athletes from Monaca. You had some great athletes from Center. This school merges, and they win a WPIL championship in your first year. What was it about? Because that usually, it takes some of these schools 50 years to accomplish something like that.
Right.
What was it about that program that was able to merge two school districts together and come together and win a WPIL title?
Yeah, we oftentimes talk about that, how special that was. It was new to everybody. So as we navigated through that first year of the merger, I explained to people many times that, you got two starting quarterbacks, you had a mesh, you had two starting running backs, and just down the line. So I thought it was important that we try to develop and set this up as a college where we have an offensive staff, a defensive staff, two platoon. So guys mainly played offense. We didn't have any two-way players except for maybe Lucas Turley. And that's how we approached it. And I don't think those young men in that first year from both Monaca and Center get enough credit for what they did.
That's something I want to ask you, Coach. So let's put football aside for a second.
Right.
Those are two. So I grew up in this area. I played against Center. I played against Monaca. Let's just be honest.
Right.
They were two different areas.
Absolutely.
How did those kids off the football field come together as one? As one unit.
Yeah, that's a great question because that was in everybody's back of their mind. How is this going to work? I'm sure there were people in the community, probably parents at that point, that were still not fully sold on this merger. We're probably not 100% pleased. But once the players arrived at camp and they looked around, the thing off the field that really stood out to me is how well they're still friends. That might not have occurred if they didn't come together as Central Valley. But like I said, I think those young men from both Monaca and Center, they deserve all the credit for making that work and for the merger not only to work, but that kicks off the school year. Let's not forget, football is your first sport coming out of your new school year. And you talk to a lot of administration, and they'll always say the school year is predicated on the success of the football team, the vibe of the school. If it's going to be a great year, everybody's on board, and that kind of just slingshotted the school, man. It was pretty cool.
I haven't heard that before. I actually love that because it's the first sport. School just opened.
Absolutely.
Kind of builds off the basketball team because do a lot of your players play basketball?
Yeah. We
you
encourage.
Them?
Oh, absolutely. We encourage our guys. I help out with a track, so I want our guys running track. We got guys playing basketball. We encourage our guys to play basketball.
Okay.
And it's important they do. And to be quite honest with you, it's important that our coaching staff gets to see them outside of the football field, get to know them, and just understand that they generally care about the players, not just as a football player.
And that's important. So while we're back in this era, to this day, Robert Foster is the best player I've ever watched in high school play live. That's just my opinion. You coached him. Can you speak on the talent that kid had?
Yeah, I'm not so sure I can do any service with the number of adjectives that would put place before him. I know coaches have been in the game for as long as I have and even longer that do not get a talent like that, a generational talent. I was fortunate enough to get not only Robert, but Jordan Whitehead, Sean Fitzsimmons, and the list just goes on and on. But getting back to Robert, he was a freak in a way that we thought he was good. I think a lot of people knew he was good, but I think what really set him apart was the spring coming into his senior year when we started to see SEC schools come up and watch him. Then you know he has that speed.
So let me ask you, is he a guy that came from Monaca?
Yeah, he was a Monaca student.
Because we graduated in the same class, and I believe he was a kick returning as a freshman. And a lot of guys were like, "Who is this kid?"
Absolutely, yeah. He played as a freshman.
Do you remember watching him at all?
Yeah, a little bit because I was actually at Mount Pleasant at that time.
That's right.
So yeah, but I still kept one eye on the scores and knew enough people still in the community that I was keeping track of.
I asked that because I know you're a Monaca resident.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Born and raised in Monaca, so I know you probably were tracking them even when you were still at Mount Pleasant. But so this will lead to my next question. So in my opinion, over the last 20 years, WPIL, PIAA, I guess you could say football, it's been split into two eras, in my opinion, because of the 4 classifications going to 6 classifications. That's just my opinion. There's 2 different eras. Now, you guys played, what was it? I think it was 5 years in the 4 classification era, correct?
Yes. Probably longer.
I think it was 6.
It was 6.
I think it was 6 years. What is the biggest difference that you see as a head coach between 4 classifications and 6 classifications?
I don't know if we see it as much in a higher classification. Outside of 6A only having 5 schools. Obviously, everybody has talked about that. I think what the 6 classifications have done is your smaller enrollment schools that, especially around this area, have an opportunity to get in the playoffs that they might not have had that opportunity.
I agree 100%.
I think that is one of the big positives. I think it's here to stay personally. I know a lot of people voice their opinion on, we need to go back.
People.
Sure,
yeah.
you hear it a lot. In my opinion, I think it's here to stay because at the end of the day, you want to have as many opportunities for young men to participate in the postseason.
And you've seen that firsthand. I mean, like a Union, they've had a hard time because they graduate 43. That's where I come from.
Right.
They graduate 43 kids.
Yeah, you probably would have never saw them play in the WPL championship.
Exactly. So it's great to see schools get that opportunity, and that is the one thing that 6 classifications do. But would you say that it thinned out the talent level or competition level at all?
I think that's a double-edged sword. I'm not seeing an influx of blowouts, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
But I'm not so sure that's been consistently true.
Okay.
We saw them back in 4 classifications, and we see them back, in 6 classifications.
Yeah. And I'm going to break down, you guys, the next few years, you had some great teams from 2011 to 2013 with a great record of 20-6 the next 3 seasons. You lose to Montour. They were a tough team. I remember Devin.
Yeah.
You guys, it took a while to break through. Out of the 2011 to 2013 teams, which one of those teams, because you guys had really good teams, which one was the best, that didn't win a whippy?
Well, here's I think this is a stat that nobody really connected. We've never won when we had Jordan Whitehead and Robert Foster on the same team.
I was looking at that when I was doing the homework.
And when I look back at that, I'm thinking I must have done a really bad job at that point. But I just think we ran into a few teams that were just playing better at that time. A break here or there that made another play that we didn't make. But it's hard to pick what team. I want to say possibly, the game that we lost to Montour at Ambridge. They went on to beat Knock. I think the seeding, I don't know why it shaked out like it did, but I think the WPL championship game was that semifinal game up at Ambridge that night.
Yeah, you guys played Montour and Ambridge that night. Because when I was looking at it, I'm like, that was not the WPIL championship game.
No.
And they were talented.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great football game.
So you guys lose in 2014, you lose a tough, gritty game to a well-coached, we know Bob Palka, one of the greatest coaches in the state. 16-7 tough, gritty loss. The next year in 2015, you come right back, and I was at the game. Jordan Whitehead put on one of the best performances I've seen. I want you to first talk about the team as a whole because the whole team played great, but can you just elaborate on Jordan Whitehead that night? Because as a coach, you probably remember that.
Yeah, what made Jordan so special was I think he elevated everybody else's game. And I say this a lot in just any levels. When guys start throwing out MVP type to a certain athlete or an unbelievable athlete, you're an outstanding athlete. You're outstanding or an MVP caliber if you make your teammates' level of play come up to yours. And Jordan did that. I think he had a way of just bringing people to him and elevating.
Yeah.
He never demanded anymore. He never wanted anything special. He never demanded, give me the ball more. He just was so close to his teammates. He wanted everybody to succeed, and I think that's what made that team so special.
Let me ask you something about Jordan. What was it about him to allow him to have such a successful college career, but now, he's doing great in the pros.
Yeah. The one thing he always did, first of all, his surroundings were solid. What I mean by that is family. They kept him grounded, and he always had a goal where he wanted to end up. As soon as he got to the point, and we saw it as a senior, where he started worrying about his body, what he ate, you knew right there that he's got something special. He's got bigger things on his mind. And he never, ever took a day where he didn't pay attention to his workout habits, to his eating habits, and then just his film study.
Coach, so I grew up as a kid with that Parkway Conference. I grew up in Newcastle, and then I moved down to Southside Beavers. So I grew up in Newcastle in that Parkway Conference. Before the 6 classifications, you want to talk about that 3A? Remember the 3A Parkway?
It was a blast. I mean, it was unbelievable. No matter where you went, the crowds were just, the stadiums were packed. It was great football. The coaching in that conference was just unbelievable. That was a great run of the Parkway we had. I think we were represented in the WPIL for, 5, 6, 7 years straight.
It's the best in the state.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so. It's tough.
Yeah, that's probably a valid point. But, those days were just fun to be a part of.
Yeah, man. Is there anyone, so from that era, we're going to get into, the 2000, once the 6 classifications came in, but from before that era, is there any one player, one person, one coach that had a lot to do with the success of that team?
Of our team?
Yeah, of your team. Does it have to be a player? Is there a coach?
No,
is it just a collective unit?
You know what? I'm going to go back to 2010. I think, and I'm going to stress the fact that what those young men did to pull both communities together, and we end up getting into the playoffs as a number 14 seed out of 16. We ran the table, end up winning the WPIL championship, but the semifinal game against TJ. Now here's TJ. They're probably on the streak of 13 straight semifinal appearances.
That time,
They were just rolling the WPIL. We go there and we walked into the stadium at North Allegheny, and it right then and there, and I get goosebumps just talking about it. The stadium behind us, the seats behind us were filled, and it was nothing but Carolina.
North Allegheny.
Yeah, it was Carolina Navy, and we won that football game. Our guys turned around and ran straight to the fans, and right then and there, I said, "This merger's complete." It just brought everybody together. It was surreal.
So that was the moment that you knew this was the correct move.
Yes, absolutely. And then from that point on, it started to snowball. And, then you get some players come along, you get some fantastic players, and then you're playing with that kind of confidence. This fan base just grew. They traveled to away games. Our home stadium was packed every Friday night, and it was a runaway train for a long time.
Well, this area has been waiting for something like that, and they're willing. Monaca, I grew up playing Monaca.
Sure.
It was a crazy place to play down the river, man.
Yeah.
I remember playing those games. But Monaca and Center, the community, can you just speak about how much football means to both these communities now?
Yeah, they were so close. I mean, families, obviously there was relatives amongst both teams. Obviously they are sharing the same zip code. Across the street you might have went to Center. The other side of the street you probably went to Monaca. But they didn't play each other a lot because of where they were positioned as far as enrollment.
2A, 1A.
2A, 1A, exactly. So, again, they both had a lot of pride in their sport. Knowing both communities, being from Monaca, and now, and I spent some time at Center living there. My kids were going to school there before the merger. I knew a lot of people, and I say this, it helped a lot because I think I knew what both communities expected out of their athletics, especially the football team. And I was fortunate enough that they handed me the keys. They let me build it like how I thought it should be built, and like I said, that first year, man, when we got in and we ran the table, was just an unbelievable. It was a storybook. It really was.
Well, I was going to ask you, because you were the coach at Monaca from what, 96 to 2000, correct?
Yes.
What was it like coming full circle while these two, you know what I mean, coming back and you're coaching your community again?
Yeah, you know, I always kept, like I said, an eye on it no matter what I was
Yes,
at
sir.
Mount Pleasant. You know, that wasn't an easy decision to move on. I thought it was a great opportunity for me to leave Monaca. We were on a good run at
Yes,
that
sir,
point. Unfortunately, we've just lost 3 straight WPL championship at the old Three River Stadium. You know, Rochester twice and the great Southside team once. So I started to, you know, a couple schools were calling, and I wanted to see what I can do outside of my home school and see if I can build something. So I went down to Mount Pleasant. I met a lot of great people. It helped me grow, obviously, as a person, but also as a coach. But I kept an eye on it. I really did.
You've always kept an eye on Monaca.
I kept an eye on Monaca. And then when I started hearing talk about a potential merger, I started really keeping an eye on both teams. You know, I don't tell people a lot. I actually attended a couple of the games when we got bounced out. So, you know, I just sit and watch from afar, just kind of take it in, because I knew if that point would come, I'd have a strong interest in the job, and I wanted to be prepared.
When did those talks start, Coach?
I'm going to say
Was it a long time?
It was probably 2008,
Okay.
2007. I'm not completely.
I got you. I was just trying to get it.
Yeah, so you know, you hear that
because
in
you
the
heard
community.
rumblings is what
Sure,
I'm getting from
absolutely.
the conversation we're having.
So, like I said, plus, you know, my old staff, they were still ingrained into Monaca program.
They were all still at Monaca.
Yeah, well, when I left, Sean McCreary took over, okay, and then Sam Saccone followed Sean.
Yeah.
So, you know, we were in contact constantly. You know, those guys, they've been part of what we've done.
It was a family.
It was a family, and you know, they were bouncing ideas off of them. I was asking them, and just check it in, making sure. So it's not like I left on terms where I wanted to leave like in a bad way. It was just an opportunity. I wanted to see.
Presented itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to the 6 classifications. Those first 3 seasons, I guess in Central Valley terms, you could say it was a bit of a rebuilding. You know,
Yeah.
It was 8. Well, I don't know the exact record, but you guys weren't. It wasn't undefeated season after undefeated season.
No.
So you had 3 of those seasons to build. What was it about? You know, I think it was the 2019 team that broke through and won that WPIL championship. They didn't win the state that year, but what was it about that team that allowed them to break through?
Well, that 19 team was a freshman coming through. We struggled a little bit, and when we struggled, you know, we were 500. I think we were 4-6 one year, then we were, you know, 6-5. And we were trying to find ourselves there.
Yeah.
We ran into a dairy team when they were on their little bit of a streak for 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, again, having to go on the road. It allowed us, myself, and I know our staff, to kind of step back and reevaluate what we need to do better. But as you have mentioned, that 2019 juniors and seniors are part of that team. They saw that, and they took it upon themselves that they were going to want to turn it around themselves, and they did that.
That's what I wanted to ask you. So that 2019 team, were a lot of those players on those teams
Yes.
that didn't have the greatest of years?
Yes, they were. Like I said, they were freshmen, sophomores, so they saw that, and they knew that
They worked for it.
They didn't want to have that next to their year as not advancing and keeping up the short tradition that we've established.
I understand.
And they wanted to turn it around. They wanted to be that first team to win the state championship, and they did. They talked about it. You know, we came up short in 2019. You know, against Wyoming area.
Yeah.
But a lot of those guys were juniors, and I tell you what, I was asked, how did you bounce back? Did you have to put a slogan, a saying? We didn't have to say anything. We never talked about that 29. I saw in their eyes and their preparation every day that I knew what their end game was. And obviously the outcome was there.
Well, and that's what we're getting to. So 2020 comes around, you guys, you do it. Take care of the WPIL championship and you take care of the 3A PIAA championship. Can you explain how hard it is to people to take care of both of those championships?
it is. First of all, you have to have obviously a little bit of luck. The ball's got to bounce your way throughout the season.
Yeah.
But I think everybody will tell you, injuries, staying healthy, plays a huge part, and we were able to do that. Our guys, we again spent a lot of time during the season. We're still lifting. We're still taking care of our bodies. As a coach, we monitor how much time we spend on our feet on a practice field. So when you throw that all into the hat, I think it's important to evaluate. You start to listen to your guys more, how they're feeling. You start to have communications, because you don't want a team out there that's kind of running out of gas, running on empty. But it is a long haul. 15 football games,
Especially in high school.
Especially in high school. I mean, by the time we finished and won that state championship game, I think Christmas, we were opening up Christmas presents, because that game was in
early December, man.
But I'll tell you this, I'd go through that grind every year if we were able to. Absolutely.
So you guys turn around and you do it again.
Right.
Now that's usually the hardest thing to do, because you usually not the coach, but some of the kids, they get too confident. We won it. What was it about that team that was able to go back-to-back? Because back-to-back state championships, that's the biggest accomplishment in my opinion.
Right. So after the first one, we had some pretty good juniors on that team, one being Sean Fitzsimmons, obviously. We had a great core of juniors involved in that first state championship game. And I think the one thing that they talked about is, how are you going to be remembered, your senior class? You're tied to that first state championship team, but you were juniors. How do you separate yourself? So they said the best way to separate yourself is let's go back to back. So they kind of ran with that thought process, and they did. And I'm going to tell you what Sean Fitzsimmons did from an offense and defensive line position.
Unbelievable.
You see performances and domination from quarterbacks, the Terrell Pryors of the world, the Tyler Boyds. I mean, those are epic players who carry teams. I always thought those guys were special, but when I had my opportunity to see a defensive lineman have that kind of impact on every game, and even at the state level, it was an unbelievable play from Sean Fitzsimmons all year.
So it's on here. Can you just speak on him? You know what I mean? It just runs right in there. Can you speak on him and the success he's having now?
Yeah. Again, Sean's he was such an advanced player for his age. Okay. He did things, with his leverage, playing with his hands. You don't see high school kids do. He's really smart, understands the game. Got a great, like I said, I think this is important. His family, his dad played at the next level. His dad knew what he needed to do outside of football. He's always prepared, made it sure, first one on a practice field, last one off the practice field. But what he did to impact games from a defensive position, I mean, I talk to coaches now, they did everything they can to scheme, to do things to run away, and it still didn't help. He still was able to put his blueprint or his fingerprints all over the game.
So I don't know too much about his recruitment. When did his recruitments really start to, open up?
It started to open up. His sophomore year, obviously, he started getting out. I can remember we went to an Under Armour invite out in Ohio.
Yeah.
Did well. Obviously, his play in junior, then he's on the radar.
Yeah.
But what was kind of funny about his recruitment, all the ACC schools were intact. Some of the Big Ten schools were just not sold on his height.
Oh.
And that's the frustrating part where, you tell a kid he's done everything he was supposed to put his play on tape, but you're a half inch shorter than they like you. But that's the recruiting of today. But he took that as a motivation, and again, he's going to have a great career at Pitt.
Yeah. So I definitely wanted to speak on him. So the next year after this back-to-back, you guys end up back in the Parkway, kind of full circle. Well, the 6A Parkway. What's the biggest difference, if there is one, you can say there isn't, between 3A football and 4A football? Is it the upfront play, or what would you say?
I would say probably the upfront play and the depth, quality of the lineup, of the roster. not in just about every position. And that's no knock to the smaller classifications. They're dealing with numbers. It's just that the numbers in 3A to 4A kind of increase, and the depth is deeper and better quality.
Well, let me ask you that. So you guys did make a run to the Whitfield Finals last year. Did you see the difference in depth in that 4A? Was it more, you needed more guys? You could just tell.
Absolutely, and we were prepared for that.
You were.
Our roster number was up. I mean, I think that year we had like 67 guys on the roster.
That's a big roster.
And we always wanted to play a lot of guys, and I think that actually got us through that year, especially the WPL Championship.
All right, and so we brought it full circle. Now I want to talk about the 2023 Warriors. We have Tyler Costanza, Nick McCreary, and Mason Dixon over there. They're going to join the show. Can you explain to the people why you chose those three to come on today and what they mean to this Warriors team?
Well, let me start first with our two seniors, Nick McCreary and Tyler Costanza. You know, those are guys who have been part of the program for a long time. And again, those are our leaders, and they're the guys up front. We understand the importance of those guys. They've seen how we're supposed to look. They've been part of what needs to be done Monday through Thursday, how to get in the weight room. They're all it's something that's been modeled for them, and they've carried that now. Mason, again, you know, I don't know if I could say enough words about his quality of play, the way he carries himself every day in practice. You know, we're so fortunate that he's only a junior.
Yeah, man.
You know, he battled last year with a shoulder that eventually had to be shut down and get surgery right after the last game against Alacopa. And but again, just carries himself with such poise, utmost respect, and I think he's one of those quiet leaders that our guys really, really look to.
Oh,
and his play right now, in fact, all three of them, their play right now is evident what we want our young players to see.
So you like those guys to set the example,
exactly.
set the bar?
They're setting the bar. They're carrying the torch, but yet setting the bar.
So I want to speak about maybe some players on this team that do their job and they work hard, but they don't get as much recognition. You got a couple of those guys, Coach?
I mean, think one of those juniors is Tyler Andrusa.
I love that kid.
Yeah, and I think, again, I know these three, they would probably say the same thing that I would. He's one of those guys that understand what we want from that position. Again, these guys got to see Sean Fitzsimmons every day, and they know what it's like to practice that way, what it's like to prepare. So I think, with that being said, Tyler's one of those guys that really, really understand the approach that we want from our players. Work hard in the weight room when he's supposed to, watch him film when he's supposed to, and practices hard Monday through Thursday.
He was an all-conference player, correct?
That's exactly right, he was.
Up front, man, he's a monster. You guys have a very talented 2026 class. Can you speak on Brendan Alexander, JJ Work, and Ethan Shear a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, for what great leadership we have, we still only have 7 seniors on our roster.
Wow.
So some of our young guys have had to grow up. Last year we played a lot of underclassmen just because we got nicked up a little bit. But, you know, you mentioned Brendan Alexander. I think our guys know that he's the next guy that needs to elevate his game. And we tell our guys, if you're good enough to play, if you're good enough Monday through Thursday, regardless of what class you're in, we're going to put the best player on the field. And so I know he was driven. He was in the mix last year. We brought him along, and now he just needs to just keep elevating his game, heading in the direction. JJ Work and Ethan Shear. Now those are two freshmen last year that we threw into the fire, as I said, when we lost Mason there at the end of the year, and we lost another inside linebacker. But again, they don't shy away from it, and they were willing to take out responsibility. If it did anything to those guys, I think it motivated them to want to be better, to know to get better, and it shows in their play early on.
And you have a 2027 player in Jance Henry. You want to speak about what he can become in a few years for you?
Yeah, you know, Jance, again, for a freshman, I think he's think he's wise, above his years. And the one thing that separates him, the reason why Jance is able to get on the field as a freshman, I think his body's prepared. I think his body can take care of that varsity level of play. Just like all freshmen, they mentally he's making the mistakes like all freshmen do. But you know what? He don't make the same mistake twice. And that's the only thing we ask. Learn from it, and he does. If it's a mistake, he's going to learn from it, but he's going to be better from it. And we've seen that early on from him.
And you're right. He does have that body. It's not a freshman body. He's been in the weight room for a long time, and he's built. So
right, absolutely.
You're definitely right about that. Now, I want to get into the team a little bit, like the whole team as a unit. What do you believe the strengths of this 2023 team is?
Well, I still believe it, and we said it coming in. I think our strengths are our offensive line. Obviously, our two senior leaders, Nick and Tyler, and then with Tyler Andrews is the other one. Those three guys started a lot of football games for us for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I think that is our strength. Brendan's now become a full-time starter. That has to be your strength, especially late in the season. And then
especially in November in WPIAL, you never know.
That's
you
right.
might not be able to throw the ball, man.
Exactly. And then I think our stable of running backs that we have, starting with Mason, then going to Jance, and then Brendan Singleton. Those are three guys that. Here's what I love about the three is, and as I said about Mason, unselfish. They understand what our big picture is. We track everybody's carries. We track everybody's snaps. I don't want these guys worn out late in the year. I want them fresh and hungry. And we do that. We manage that throughout the year. And they've accepted that and ran with it. So I think the strength right there is built. But now I think Steve's starting to come into his own, the quarterback, Stevie Rutherford. It took some time. We were young in the outside from the wide receivers. The continuity wasn't quite there yet early on. But every day in practice, we're recreating a live situation from game snaps to not only improve Steve's reads, but making sure our wide receivers understand coverages and where their routes need to be adjusted.
So he's starting to get the pre-snap reads more.
Absolutely.
He's starting to,
Yeah.
because that's to me, as a quarterback, that's one of the most important things. Sure. Understanding coverages and those pre-snap reads. You think he's starting to come along?
Absolutely. He's a bright kid. I knew he would get there. He needed time.
Experience.
He needed reps, and that's why I told him. I said, "Listen, I'm gonna give you some stuff. It's on you. I'm not gonna ever tell you that's a bad decision. The only thing we're gonna talk about is tell me a better decision." And that's the kind of dialogue we have in between plays, and he's starting to really get us into better situations. We put a lot on our quarterback's play to have a little bit of freedom. I'd like to just step back away from whatever's called. He has the option to get us into something else if need be.
Not every quarterback has that, so he's got some freedom. Only one tough defeat this season against Avonworth, 28-20. It was a great game. You want to take us through that and what you guys could have did better to come away with a victory?
Obviously, you can't go on the road against a good football team and give it to them. Turn it over.
Yes, sir.
We turned it over. I think our guys realized we didn't prepare well, and that's my responsibility as a head coach. We didn't have a good week as far as being locked in. We come off of a very spiritual, very emotional, very exciting, confident-building win in Ohio against Austin Town Fitch. I don't think we got our feet back on the ground soon enough.
You think everybody was still stuck on that game?
Yeah, well, I think we were still at a high level, kind of. I think we're still feeling that good about that. We didn't know how to move on.
Yeah.
And we didn't do that. But guess what? That's my job as the head coach to recognize that, especially when you have a young football team. And I think our play showed that night against Avonworth. We weren't as crisp. We didn't execute on some things, turned the ball over. Those are all part of that preparation. But we've learned from it. We now understand what it means to prepare Monday through Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, Avonworth, they lost to Bell Vernon in the finals last year. It's a very, very good 3A team. So you guys bounced back and you beat Newcastle this past Friday. Where where would you say you're at with your guys' performance on the bounce back now? Were you happy with where they're at?
Yeah, because we're trending. We're heading in the right direction. And we now have a lot of guys understanding their role. I think this past Friday night against Newcastle, I don't know, maybe 10 guys touched the football, either through the air or carrying it. That's something we've always tried to create. I get asked this question, a typical football question. You want to be a balanced offense, and my response is I'm not worried about the 50-50 pass run ratio. My balance is anybody that's on the field should be able to make an impact. And if you're on the field, you're going to get the football, whether it's via the air or give it to you in the run game. And we're starting to get guys understanding that when their opportunity comes, whatever personnel package we're in, they're going to have that opportunity, and we're trending there.
I like it, Coach. All right, right now where you're at, what does this team need to improve on without giving us too much?
Yeah. Well, again, I just think we need to keep moving in that right direction. You want to get better. I always tell our guys this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. This season's a marathon. You want to make sure, number one, you're taking care of your body. So don't let attrition take over come late October, early November. Making sure you're understanding what your responsibilities are on this football team. Where do you fit? How do you fit? And how do you make people around you better? We talk to them about that. And then accept it with open arms. If that means as a wide receiver you have to get down the field and block in the perimeter, then you got to accept that and do it well. And so that's where we need to continue to go. We're heading there, as I said, we're trending, but I told our guys we're a work in progress.
Yeah.
Let's just, no disrespect to anybody, but let's just keep our blinders on. Let's worry about us. Let's see what we want to look like. Let's make sure we're doing what we're supposed to every day on the practice field.
You got it. I got a last question for you, and then I'm going to do some quick hitters I personally wanted to ask you. Can you talk about WPIAL football in November and how you can best prepare for that? Because anything, it could be sleet, it could be rain, it could be snow, it could be 70.
Right. I'm not so sure I put the weather part of it as high up on the list for November football. I think you put up what your guys' bodies are feeling like in November.
Okay.
Are they dragging? Are they worn down? We keep track of our body weights every 2-3 times a week. I mean, some of these guys, they dread coming in on Monday knowing Coach Steven Sennis is going to check their weight. He's on them about keeping your body that strength because, everybody comes out of the gate exciting. It's a new year. Your bodies are fresh. You came off of summer and you should be at your strongest. But you got to be like that, hopefully, in November. Now, everybody's going to have nicks and bruises, but it's the team that can sustain it and overcome it because of they've paid attention to it. And then, obviously, as I said earlier, everybody's on the same. Everybody's bought in. Everybody's locked in on their role and what we want to accomplish as this football team.
I got some quick hitters for you, Coach.
You got it.
I'm going to get to your boys.
Sounds good.
The best athlete you've ever coached, freak athlete.
I'm going to give you two, Jordan Whitehead and Robert Foster.
Those two? Okay. The best pure football player you've ever coached.
I'm going to give you three.
Go ahead. It doesn't matter.
I'm going to throw Sean Fitzsimmons in there because he has changed my thinking as not only the great athlete, but just a pure football player.
I love that. Because to me, there's a difference between a great athlete and a great pure football player.
I would agree with you.
Okay. Best player you've ever coached against?
The name slips my mind. The guy from Archbishop Wood that went to Penn State, the lineman. So
we'll get him up on the screen for you. We'll get him up there. He was good.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah,
he was good.
Was that in that state? That was in that state final?
Yeah, that was a state final.
All right. The best coach you've ever coached against?
I'm going to say probably Bob Pelko.
Bob Pelko? Okay. Who's the smartest player in Central Valley history?
Mike Cupper.
Okay. What's your favorite moment in your coaching career at Central Valley?
2010, the semifinal game, without a doubt.
Nothing will ever beat it?
No. As I said, turning around and looking at those fans, and right then and there, I said the merger's complete.
That's awesome. What's your favorite season? I know you had a lot of them, man. You can give me 2 or 3. This is a hard one.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I know, man.
The 2010 season, obviously, because how it unfolded. We took on the motto, let's write our own chapter. We felt like we were writing a book. I'm
going to tell you, man, none of us knew what to expect.
None of us.
I came to that first, you guys played Newcastle with my grandpa, he goes to every Newcastle game, so I went with them. We came down. We didn't know what to expect. Right. I remember a punt snap, I'm getting off topic, but a punt snap goes over top of Robert Foster's head. It is on the 109. Like, there's maybe not even a yard.
You're right, his heel's almost on the end line. Absolutely.
And there's 4 guys around him.
Agreed.
He somehow gets out of there, ends up on the 50-yard line.
Do you understand why he locked or he didn't go the whole way? He's tracking. He's swinging his arm, running so fast. He goes like this, and the ball just comes right out of
Yeah,
the
we saw the ball fly. He would have took it to the crib.
Yeah, unbelievable. I talk about that a lot too. That's a great conversation piece to kind of reminisce about.
Oh man, we were standing right there, and that
funny you brought that up. That's pretty cool.
Because the snap, it was like it wasn't just a high. He couldn't even jump the gate.
He looks down. He's looking and surveying the guys coming at him. He's literally on the back end of the line.
If you pause it, you have him picking up the ball, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red shirts all around him.
I'm gonna have to pull that clip.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Cool.
So, but how he got out of there that day, I just had to bring that moment up because that was a moment I'll never forget.
I don't know how he got out of a lot of plays.
Runs like a deer. All right. What was the most proud moment you've had in your CV coaching career? It could be of a player, of a team. It could be any moment.
Again, I'm going to just go back to that 2010. And this is no disrespect to any of the other teams. Again, because when I tell you, you got 2 quarterbacks who are used to being starters, that somebody's going to have to be the backup. How they handled it, I'm not so sure people can understand what that's like. I think that's what's missing in a lot of sports today. Kids they want a quick feedback. They want what's in it for me quickly. That group had to kind of step back from their own personal, limelight and just kind of let everybody share.
About us.
It's about us.
I love it. I already asked this a little bit. I asked about when they merged, but now Central Valley, it's a community. You guys are no longer Monaca Center.
Right.
It's a community.
Correct.
I already asked you this, but I want you to elaborate a little bit more. What does it mean to these people to be able to come out every Friday night and support these Warriors? Because what I saw last Friday in the parking lot was unbelievable, man.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think we've created a great atmosphere. I think our guys really, really look forward to coming out of the locker room. You get the fire truck sirens going, and you got every possible youth in the community lined the runway out on the field, and our guys look forward to that. And I think our fans, they want us to do well. They travel well. They support us well. I always say this. To me, Friday nights are supposed to be for the school district and the community.
Yeah.
And if you look at the number of students involved in Friday night, from players to trainers to managers to ball boys to band to color guard, that's where every one of your student body and our student body, you should be at a Friday night football game.
Yeah, everybody. And I think that's something that's missing from high school sports,
agree with
man.
you.
There's not enough kids going to these games.
Exactly, and I still think we have that.
And you do, and that's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
It seems like, because you always have, the older community will always come out and support.
Sure.
I think it's about the younger generation
Exactly.
getting out there and supporting their student athletes.
A great point, and we take great pride in that.
You do.
We are very appreciative of that. And that's I talk to our guys about that a lot. Don't take this for granted. This is supposed to be what high school memories are built on.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a lot of great memories, but you should have some special memories of just not only playing, but being your friends,
the community,
Absolutely.
your family, your friends, man. I get that.
That's a great point.
I get that. Coach, this is something I want to know. What continues to drive you to be great and continue to coach football?
I've always had this thing where, obviously, if you talk to a lot of people, I'm not a pleasant guy to be around when I lose. That's in anything.
I'm not either.
Whether we're playing checkers here or not, it's just
the same way.
I don't take that real well, but I also take challenges. I enjoy the preparation. I love meeting with our staff on Saturday and then again Monday night and putting together a game plan and seeing how I can impact our players to execute that. I still have a great desire during the week. This may shock some people, but I'm not saying the games aren't fun, but I actually get excited about practice.
So you enjoy the grind?
I love the preparation. I love the preparation going from A to Z and then seeing the results.
The games are basically the payoff.
Exactly.
Got it.
And as long as that's still going on,
You're going to continue to do it. That's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
What continue to drive you?
Here's the other thing. If I feel like I'm not impacting the players like I should, and they're not getting the message,
you won't force yourself there.
No, that's not fair to them.
I love that.
I'm the adult.
I love that.
If they're not getting my message and they're no longer seeing it, then I need to step aside and let someone else do this because I owe that to them. I owe that to give them a great experience, and hopefully they're hearing the message so they can have that great experience.
Yeah, totally respect that. And this is my last question. Coach, we've all had a mentor. Who have you learned the most from when it comes, in this football world? Did you have a mentor?
Yeah, absolutely. My high school coach.
Who is that?
Alan Guandola.
You want to say his name again?
Alan Guandola.
Okay.
So he was our coach at Monaca. I got into coaching because of him.
Oh, wow.
I ended up being a volunteer for him back at Monaca. And then as he moved his career, he always took me with him. And I was his defensive coordinator, and he demanded so much from me as far as preparation, making sure you're prepared, how to handle things. He got into administration, became a superintendent of Monaca. When I came back to be their head coach, some of the things I was doing, I needed to do them a little differently. But he's a phone call away. We've always been close. I respect him dearly. I don't know if I'd be here if it wasn't for him pushing me in this direction.
I love it. And this is the last thing I want to leave people with. Can you tell us what we can look forward to the rest of the second half of the season, Central Valley Warriors, and what you guys are working towards?
Well, obviously, we've got some big football games coming up, as it is every Friday. You're going to see a group of young guys, and when I say that literally because we are a young football team. We're never going to use that for an excuse. We're never going to use that as a crutch to say, wait till next year or we're too young. We don't believe in that. You're going to see guys that are excited to play with some enthusiasm, and I tell them every day, every Friday night before we leave the locker room, you better have a smile. This is a game.
Yeah, I love that.
Put a smile on your face. It's a game, and that's what I do. I tell them, I'm going to get out of the way. This is your show. I'm going to the sideline. Okay, I'm going to hide on the sideline. You guys have fun.
One just popped into my head. You guys are so close. Speak on the rivalry between you and Aliquippa and how special that's become.
Yeah, obviously it's just a natural rivalry because of the proximity. Again, I'm sure both schools, both groups of players have families in both communities.
Oh, yeah.
And when that's happening, it develops a great rivalry. But when you're playing big games, when you're playing for championships, when you're playing in sold-out stadiums, that just adds to it. And it's always been a fun experience to play against them because they bring out the best of us, and I think we bring out the best of them.
And I think it was cool because Coach Mike Warfield came from Central Valley. He says nothing but great things about you when I talk to him.
Again, he did tremendous things for our quarterbacks while he was here. I consider him a great friend.
He still got that arm, man.
Yeah, he does.
He threw 150 yards in the bag.
Yeah,
Coach.
yeah, he can sling it.
Wow.
He can sling it. But yeah, he was a great asset for our guys, and I knew when that job opened, he was the right guy. He was absolutely the right guy for that job, and obviously everybody's seeing the outcomes.
And you guys go to war between the Lions, but you can tell now the kids have nothing but respect
Yeah, it
between
is.
both programs.
It's a mutual respect, but up until that point, and that's the way it should be. Obviously they want to beat us bad, we want to beat them bad. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's a game. It's supposed to be a great experience, but it's a game.
Well, guys, we're going to leave you with that. I'd like to thank Coach Mark Lyons for joining the show. Thank you once again for joining.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate everything you're doing for high school football.
No problem. I love this, man.
All right, great.
And that's our segment with Coach Mark Lyons. All right, and we're back. This segment, we were just joined by Coach Mark Lyons. This segment, we're joined by some of the upperclassmen Central Valley Warriors leaders. We have Mason Dixon, linebacker, running back, class of 2025. We have Tyler Costanza, class of 2024, offensive lineman, defensive lineman. And then we have Nick McCreary, offensive tackle, right? Mm-hmm. All right. We got these three guys with us here today in Monaca. We had to check in. We're on your turf, so I had to call you boys in. So Coach chose you three. He thinks you guys are the leaders and the core of this program. I'm going to start with you, Mason. First off, I want to thank you boys for joining the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. Yeah,
no problem. Mason, what is it like being a part of such a historical program that hasn't even been around for 25 years, man?
Well, it's kind of like we're setting like the tone for the future to come. So, with a great coach like Coach Mark to lead us, it's great to be like an inspiration to the little kids and to really just set the tone for the next, decade, 2 decades to come.
For sure. And for you, Tyler?
I'm pretty new to the area, but it's great being a part of the team. It's a great culture.
Just a great culture. Nick, what do you have to say about the culture of Central Valley and being entrenched in it?
Well, I've been around here at Central Valley for a long time, and I just love it. I've always loved it. It's a fun culture. It's fun to play on, and it's just a great team.
So you were a kid watching,
I was a ball boy for years.
So you've been here.
Yeah, I was around it for a long time.
I love it. You know what? We'll stick with you, Nick. At the end of the day, as an offensive lineman, what's your number one attribute?
I mean, I just got to move people. I got to get people out of the way.
You're a body mover?
I got to move people.
I like
Get them out of the way.
I like you moving
so
bodies.
running backs like Mason can make some plays.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, okay. And then Tyler, you're on both sides of the ball.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about offensively, then talk about defensively. Some of your best attributes.
Offensively, I think I'm new to guard, but I'm pretty sure I'm good at pulling. I can move in D-line. I'm pretty fast off the ball. I'm good with my speed. I'm good with my hands.
Yeah. And then, Mason, you want to just speak about what makes you just such an effective football player out there on that field?
Really just my football knowledge. Like, I take a lot of time to study the game and watch film. That's a big part of my game.
Yeah, for sure.
So really just knowing what I have to do on certain plays really just helps me.
You got it. Mace, I'll stick with you. Always love to ask this one because this is my biggest pet peeve. You always got to continue to improve. Halfway through the season, you guys are what, 4-1?
Yeah.
Where do you think you guys need to improve most?
Right now, I would say probably our special teams.
Yeah.
Our special teams has been, normally we're a really good special teams team. That's where we normally win games. That's where we excel at. Right now, we're kind of behind. So we're going to be working towards that to get that better, to give us an extra advantage.
If you ever watch my podcast, I had a segment called Special Teams Matter.
Yeah,
Special
they
teams
definitely
win
do.
and lose games, man.
Yeah.
You look at those scores at the end of the night, you'll see a lot of 22-19s.
Yeah.
And then you go back and see the failed conversions. It matters. Those kickoff returns.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I know a lot of schools like to give guys breaks, but giving your guys breaks, giving them some tackles sometimes, you know what I mean? But for you, man, I want to ask you, what do we need to improve the Warriors?
I feel like we need to come together as a unit more. Like I feel like we do, but not every play. Like we need to play as one.
Okay, Nick. Well, let's take it to you.
For me, I feel like it's the special teams, like Mason said, but also I feel like it's just the little things. The little things we're messing up here and there. Just the little tiny things, lining up right. Yeah, I mean,
just getting the little things right. You're getting all the jitters out.
Penalties sometimes are just unnecessary.
Yeah,
just little things.
Okay, I like it. Nick, we're gonna stay with you. So, you've been around for a long time. You told me the Central Valley culture is very special.
Yep.
What is it like? Just being around this community and the way they support you, because I know being around the community as a football player, they worship you guys.
Oh, yeah.
What is it like playing for this great community of Monaca and Center that merged into Central Valley?
I love it. I mean, the past couple of years when we were winning, I mean, there's people all over the place. People come up to you and talk to you at stores and stuff.
You don't even know who they are.
Most of the people I don't even know who they are. I mean,
But hey, man.
They love it. I mean, I love it. I love that they love it.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Tyler, you want to speak just playing for this community and how they got your back, man. You just want to speak on them.
It's great, man. They always come to support, no matter if we're playing in Ohio, if we're playing at home.
You guys travel, man.
Yes, sir.
Mace?
Yeah, I mean, they're a great fan base. I mean, they always support. Whether you're at Walmart, whether you're, on the field, they're always, cheering you on.
I love it. Mason, we're going to stick with you. So, boys, I spoke to your coach. We all know it's right down the road. Alcoa versus CV has become a big-time rivalry. And I told him, you guys go to war on the field, but it seems like it's all respect off the field. You want to speak on that rivalry and how big it is to Central Valley?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of us have family that, either are from Aliquippa or play for Aliquippa. So it's, sort of like a family type rivalry.
You know all of them.
Yeah, it's like playing like your cousins or your brothers. Yeah. So, and we're all so close, so it's always so competitive. So, yeah, we always look forward to that.
I got you. You want to speak on that rivalry?
Yes, sir. It's always competitive. When we go out on that field, it's war every time. No matter where we're playing, it's always gonna be war.
Nick, just speak on it a little bit. I'm gonna switch up the question. So, has that game got a different feeling? Just be honest.
Oh yeah, 100% does.
Does?
It's more intense. I mean, it's an intense game. It's always been an intense
Gritty.
game. It's down and dirty backyard game. Is basically what it is. It's fun.
It's great.
All right, boys. So, who's the smartest on your team? If you had, you know what I mean, like the smartest player, smartest football IQ. Who's the smartest?
Biased opinion, I'm gonna say me, but unbiased opinion, I would say our quarterback Stevie's pretty smart.
Yeah?
He's a pretty smart guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who would you go with?
I would have to go with my guy down with me in the trenches, Tyler Magusiak.
Hey, I like Tyler's my boy.
yes, sir.
He's
Smart guy.
a heck of a player too. Who'd you go with?
I'm gonna have to do Tyler too. I mean,
Tyler?
he's a little meathead.
Now let me ask you, boys. You guys had a tough loss over Avonworth. They're a very good team. Mm-hmm. What was the week of preparation like so you guys could bounce back and get that victory?
We were pushed all week to the extremes. You could ask Coach Mark. He challenged us and we accepted the challenge and we, took a step up.
Yeah.
So ever since then, practices have been great, intense, 100%, and it's really gotten us ready.
Want to speak on the bounce back?
That was definitely our best week of practice we've had all year. We came in, we were ready to work every day.
Yeah. What do you think allowed you guys to bounce back so quick?
I mean, it was a hard, grinding week after that. But I mean, it's just we had to clean up a lot of little things. Like
A lot
I
of
said
little
earlier,
things?
Just little things again.
All right. And then, what were you saying, like the identity? Do you guys have an identity yet, you think? Like, is it a run team or pass team? What do you think your identity is, Mason?
We've ran the ball a lot, but we have great receivers, so I think we're starting to be a team where we can do anything.
Pretty balanced?
Yeah, we're a balanced team.
Yeah, I love
would
it.
say.
That run game opens up the pass game.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly, because we can get those play fakes and open up the passing game.
Yeah.
Get guys to bite down.
Yeah, that was a question for you. I'm going to ask you this question. I'll get back to you, Mason, same question. what's the best advice Coach Mark Lyons has ever given to you?
Yeah, you got to be mentally tough. You have to be mentally prepared to go into every game, no matter who you're playing.
I love it. Nick? Hey, you're good. Coach Mark Lyons, what's the best advice he's ever given you? Or, you know what I mean? Anything that stuck with you, he said to you?
I mean, just to push yourself. I mean, I've heard a lot of things from the man. I've been around for a while. It's probably just push yourself.
Mace?
What Ty said. Ty did a great answer.
Yeah.
Mentally tough.
What's it like playing for Coach Mark Lyons, Mace?
Well, I mean, it's great because he's a legendary coach. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. He knows how to get guys ready and fired up to play. So
I know he expects a lot out of you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Is it tough playing for him?
I mean,
It should be.
yeah, I mean, he's a great coach. So, it's always tough to play for a great coach. But, I mean, not really, honestly, though.
Yeah.
Because, he really just lets us, Monday through Thursday, he's always pushing us. But on Friday, he just lets us go out there and be ourselves and play. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And what would you say about Coach, man?
I would say Coach Mark's a great coach, man. We definitely have to play to his standard for him. But just like Mace said, on Friday, he lets us go. He lets us play our game.
What would you say about Coach? You've been around a long time. He said a lot of things that you said.
I'd say he's crazy, but it's fun. It's fun.
All right, boys. Here's what I want to get into now. When you touch, I'm going to talk because we all play different positions. Mason, you're running back. When you touch the rock, maybe nothing goes through your mind. But what's the first thing running through your mind when you touch that rock?
End zone. I mean,
End zone?
I think that's what everybody wants to do.
Yeah.
But, I mean, sometimes it doesn't happen, though. Sometimes you just got to focus on getting those 2 to 3, 4 yards. And, if you keep running and running, then something's going to open up eventually. So, it's always the end zone, but sometimes, you just got to settle down take what you can get.
Yeah. And you up front, offensively and defensively, what do you think gives you the advantage over other guys on both sides of the ball? Because you move very well for your, for your size. Personally, I think that's what it is, but I want to hear from you.
I'll definitely say we practice a lot in every week, and we work on the little things, like reading perfectly. I get down to a T on everything.
I love it, man. I love it. I'm going to ask you a bit different of a question since you said you've been entrenched in this Central Valley, community. So growing up, watching these guys, did you know what was expected of you by the time you got, freshman year?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I've always, I don't know how to explain it, but it's always hard nosed, and you got to be there. You got to want to play.
Yeah, for sure. And Tyler, I'll start with you. So you guys are the leaders, the upperclassmen. You want to speak on some of the younger guys that you have that are stepping up right now?
Oh yeah, we have a bunch of young guys stepping up. JJ Work, he's always stepping up. Ethan Shear, he's switched positions this year, but he switched to tight end this year.
Yeah.
We have James Henry, he's a freshman, he's always ready to work.
Yeah, just talk coach about him.
Yes, sir. And Braddock Ambrose, he's the backup quarterback, but I think he's going to
Is he starting to come along? Yeah, I had Braddock a couple sessions. He was looking good this summer. Mace, what would you say about the young guys and how they're starting to come along?
We have a really good young group. I'm going to talk about the guys, in my position.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jance. Jance is a dog.
Yeah, man.
Not much
Talk
to say.
about him.
Ethan Shear at linebacker with me. We have a great duo together. We're going to be balling.
Yeah.
Nolan O'Neill's another guy that comes in for me and Ethan. He comes in and handles business. He's going to be nice. And Brandon Singleton, me, him, and Pippi, or we call him Pippi, but his name is Brandon Singleton. But me, him, and Jance, we share the backfield, and we got a great trio going on. Obviously, JJ Work, there's a ton of guys.
Oh, you got some guys. JJ got some carries. He looked like he could carry the ball too, man.
I know.
Talk about these young guys, man.
I think they're all doing pretty well. I mean, they're all great players. They're all great people to be around. I think they're all honestly pretty good. I mean, one of the best.
You got it. And that's all I got for you, but we're not done. What's your favorite thing to do outside of sports? Forget football, lifting, all of that. Mason, what's your favorite hobby?
Probably just chilling on the couch and watching something on the TV or watching YouTube or
I'm with you, man.
Yeah.
Tyler, for you?
I definitely enjoy playing basketball. Shooting hoops is
Okay,
always fun.
yeah.
I haven't played in a while, but it's always fun to go shoot some hoops.
For sure. Nick?
I'm a big time hunter and fisherman. I mean, I love it. I love the outdoors.
Right here,
I love
my
the
man. Me
outdoors. I love the
too.
outdoors.
Right here. All right, boys. Before I let you go, give me one final statement that what we can expect out of you guys the rest of the season.
Great things.
Great things. Tyler?
We'll be playing to a standard this year for sure.
Nick?
We're going to play hard-nosed football. It's going to be fun.
You got it. I'm here with the Central Valley Warriors. Mason Dixon, Tyler Constanza, Nick McCreary. These boys are the leaders. They're on PA Today and Friends. Thank you, boys, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Mace. Thank you, boys. I appreciate you guys. I'd like to give out the PA Today Mid-Season Player of the Year Award. I mean, how can you not give it to Peyton Wayner out of Central Catholic? 2024 quarterback. He's 64 of 94 passing for 1,164 yards, 255 rushing yards, 17 passing touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns, and only 1 interception on the year. And I know those stats are accurate because I got them from an accurate source. He has led the Central Catholic Vikings to a perfect 5-0 record to start. They just won the game of the century, as most of the newspapers were calling it, over North Allegheny in a dominant fashion win. I spoke with Peyton this last week and I asked him, what do you think was the main key to your game's just exploding on the scene this season? Because last season he lit it up. He had over 2,000 passing yards, but he looks like a different and more confident player now. And I asked him, Peyton, what was that? He said, I took more of a leadership role, and I feel I am the leader now of this offense. And you can see he's a general out there. He commands the offense. And he's got that Central Catholic Vikings offense moving up and down the field under Coach Ryan Lehmeyer, who's a QB whisperer in my opinion. He's one of the best young coaches in the WPIL. I mean, Peyton Wayner, you are PA Today Mid-Season Player of the Year. All right, and for our last segment of the night, we have the PA Today Power Rankings. Starting in 6A, the number 1 team has lost their ranking, which was last week's North Allegheny Tigers, who went down to Central Catholic this past Friday. So Central Catholic takes that number 1 spot. Number 2 is going to be North Allegheny still. They still beat Cannon Mac in dominant fashion, 30-6. So they're still at that number 2 spot. At number 3, Cannon McMillan. Their defense is legit, man. Got a couple shutouts. They got Gino Calgaro, Marco, Caden Singleton. And then on the offensive side, they got guys like Mike Evans Jr. and they got a guy like Zach Welsh in the backfield. He's really made a big difference for them coming over from Wash High. At 4, we have Mount Lebo and Coach Mike Colautti, my guy. They're down a couple pieces right now. They're injured. They're without a couple guys. So I have them in that 4 position. They're still a very dangerous team as they're very well coached, but they're down some guys right now, so I have them in that 4 position. And Seneca at 5. Seneca's a bit of a down year. They have a guy named Jaden Price who plays well for them, but Seneca's in at number 5. It's a rebuilding stage for Seneca Valley, and it's going to take a couple years to get back to where they were. As we move down into 5A, we have a new number 1. And that number 1 this week is Peters Township. Peters Township has been taking care of business. Nolan DeLucia, Reston Lehman, those guys have been doing their job. And Peters Township is a team to be reckoned with. I mean, they look good. They looked very good right now. Peters Township is my number 1 team in the PA Today 5A Power Rankings. Coming in at number 2, I still have Penn Hills at number 2 because the simple fact, you got Julian Duggar. I think they're eventually going to get back a couple key pieces. You have the Amir Keys, Natel Mitchell. They have pieces all across the board to be successful and win a WPIL championship. So that's another team that, I see possibly peaking at the right time, and they can make a state run. They have that type of talent. And then coming in at number 3, I still have Pine Richland. In my opinion, Pine Richland they're well coached under Johnny Ladone. Up front with Ryan Corey, they're always going to be able to run the ball with Ethan Pillar. I mean, Sam Hecker, they got a ton of talent on that team. And same thing last year. They started out slow. They built momentum. Next thing you know, they're the 5A PIAA state champions. As we move along here, we have a team like Woodland Hills. So those are my top 3 in 5A. 5A is pretty spread out right now, so I'm just going to speak about some teams. Those are my top 3. Peters, Penn Hills, and Pine Richland. Those are my top 3. I want to speak about some teams at this time. Gateway's coming on just at the right time. They were without Brad Birch early, and they're really starting to play some really good ball. Steven Jenkins has been playing out of his mind for Gateway lately on both sides of the ball. I mean, he's just a terrific athlete, and he's been a great addition for the Gators. Woodland Hills, I know there was a lot of controversy with that Norwin game, but they're a team that's coming on at the right time. Cam Walters, he's up there in the passing leaders. Scoop Smith, maybe one of the most exciting players, if not the most exciting player in all of WPIL. You got a guy like Prince Tarrant. He's been playing great on defense at cornerback. He had my week 0 play of the week. I mean, you got guys all over. Amir Brown, he's a 2-way player, very special kick returner. Woodland Hills is going to be there in the end. Upper St. Clair, Bethel Park, mixing those teams. Shaler had a hot start. Franklin Regional is starting to come on. 5A is pretty open, but Peters Township's at the top right now. Moving down into 4A, the Central Valley boys were just here. So this is their conference, their classification. Aliquippa's at the top for me, still at 4-0. Thomas Jefferson, they're at 2. They took out the 3A, PIAA state champion, defending state champion in Bell Vernon this past week. They're in at number 2. Right now, they're in a bit of a quarterback situation with Brody and Luke. Luke Costco's looked really good, man. He's driven the ball down the field, and he's just been a general on that team. But when it comes to Brody's been the guy. He's got a lot of experience. And, I'm excited to see what happens with that quarterback situation, because a lot of people complain about having to make that decision between 2 quarterbacks, but I'd rather have 2 good quarterbacks than no quarterbacks at all. That's just me. So moving down the line to Central Valley, I have them at number 3 still. They lost to Avonworth, who lost to Bell Vernon in the finals last year. Avonworth is a good 3A football team, and it was just a battle that night. Central Valley, they lost one. They're 4-1. They're at number 3. At number 4 is McKeesport. I know a lot of people thought they were going to fall off. The Bobby Boyd, the Perryman leaves, but they just reload. Courtney Dunn Jr. is a monster on the defensive line for them. Cayman Spell, like I talked about earlier, he's probably the best running back, or one of the best running backs in the class of 2027 in this WPIAL class. I mean, McKeesport does not rebuild, they reload, like I said. Coming in at number 5, I know Montour had that loss against Aliquippa, but I still have them at number 5. They're a team that's very dangerous. They have a lot of guys. Jake Wolf at quarterback, he's a total general. They just have a lot of guys. Daniel Batch on the outside, he's a receiver. I really like what he does. Same thing with Keno Fitzpatrick, Caden Hallijoe in the backfield. Just a lot of guys that do their job for Montour. I think they could be a team that makes a run late. They had that blemish against Aliquippa, but it's early in the season here. Moving down to 3A, Avonworth. They take the number 1 spot at 5-0 as Bell Vernon loses to Thomas Jefferson. Now, Thomas Jefferson's a 4A team, so it's tough to bounce Bell Vernon down to 2, but Avonworth is 5-0, and they took out 4A Central Valley, who was in the WPIL finals last season. So I think it's only right we have Avonworth at number 1 right now. Bell Vernon is at number 2. I mean, we know Braden Locke, Quentin Martin, we know what these guys have. They got the firepower. I expect to see them deep into the playoffs again. So they're at number 2 for now, coming off a loss to TJ. Elizabeth Forward, number 3, 5-0. Like I said, they lost Coach Mike Colautti. They haven't skipped a beat. They're playing great. Deer Lakes, they lost that first week to Keystone Oaks, and they haven't lost since. Derek Burke's been playing great. He's one of the top quarterbacks in 3A. They got a guy named Wayne Love that's just been playing terrific. And then Seton LaSalle breaking into the power rankings this week at number 5. They are 4-1. Their only loss coming to Cornell, and we know how good Cornell is after beating number 1 Union. So Seton LaSalle's 4-1, and they looked really good lately. I mean, they got guys like O'Malley Daly, Gary Smith. I talked about their upperclassmen, but like I said, Khalil Taylor came in and made an immediate impact. Same thing with Nelson Coleman, Will Martin. Those guys have just made an immediate impact for them. Moving down to 2A, We have Wash High at number 1. They're playing really good. They have a running back named Ed Lewis who's really, really good. They're 5-0 right now. At number 2, I have Steel Valley. Deron Barksdale is down right now with a bit of a knee injury. He's going to be back in a few weeks. I talked to him. Once he gets back, I believe Steel Valley is going to make another run at the Whitfield title. They're in my number 2 spot right now. But how about those Lancers coming in at the number 3 spot at 4-1 under Fred Mazzocchio? He turned this team. I mean, look, they bounced right back. They lost to Sharon in that first week, and they bounced right back, running 4 off. Neshannock's off to a great start, you know what I mean, now, after a rough week 0 loss, you know, but they're off to a 4-game winning streak, and every year, it's like they can't get over that hump of beating Beaver Falls. This past Friday, they beat Beaver Falls in overtime. They got over that hump. The Lancers are the number 3 team in the WPIL 2A classification. Coming in at number 4 is, I got to give it to a team like Amani Christian. I know they're 2-2, but I still believe in the firepower that they have over there with Steven Vandiver at quarterback. Leroy Johnson's going to air you out. I believe it's going to take, it's going to take some time, and I believe they're a team that's going to come on a little bit later in the year and make some noise in the playoffs late. Waynesburg Central, they're at number 5. They're a very young team. They've showed a lot of people, but they are here to play now, even though they have a young guy in Jack Ricatui who's just been playing out of his mind. Class of 2027 kid. He's just been ripping it up for them. They finally lost, so they're in at number 5. But as we move down to 1A, as we close this out, Bishop Canavan, you know, they're in that number 1 spot now ever since they Cornell took down Union. And Bishop Canavan this past week, they didn't even play a game. I think it was a forfeit. Avella forfeited against them, so they didn't even play, so that was an automatic win. They're 4-0. At number 2, I have Southside, man. I commentated a game over in Hookstown, and those boys look angry from last year's playoff game against Bishop. They look like they put the work in the offseason, and I know they have because I was out there. I talked to Coach Luke Travelpiece quite often. Those boys have put in the work. Ryan Navarro, Brody Almashi, A.C. Corfield, J.D. Royce, Slayton Williams, those guys have put in the work. They are ready to make a real run at this 1A WPIL title and possibly state title. So be on the lookout for the Southside Rams at 5-0. Cornell, maybe the surprise team of the year. I talked to Ed Dotson, like I said. He said everybody's surprised except us. They're 5-0. I mean, they're off to a heck of a start. No one's seen that coming. Fort Cherry, 5-0. I already said congratulations, but congratulations again to Matt Sieg on his first offer from Penn State. He has put that team on his back, but they also have guys like Shane Carnelli, Ethan Filato. They have a lot of talent on that team that a lot of people don't realize. It's not just Matt. Matt is a great player who threw for 1,000, ran for 1,000 last year, and over 3,000 total. But it's not just Matt. They have an overall team over there in Fort Cherry, and they're off to a great start at 5-0. And coming in at number 5, I still have Union in my top 5 power rankings. Why? They're the defending WPIL Class A champions, and they lost only to Cornell, who is 5-0, and they've proven to be one of the top 1A teams in the WPIL. That is the reason why I still have Union in that number 5 spot, and they took out 4-1 Mohawk, who hasn't lost since losing to Union. And as we wrap this show up, there's just a few players that I would like you guys to be on the lookout for. Every week you need to be on the lookout for Matt Sieg, Scoop Smith, 2 of the most electric players in the entire WPIL. And then in the City League, I want to show the City League some love. I was down there for the Westinghouse USO game. There's a kid named Daniel. We call him Boy Kane. He's one of the best receivers in Pennsylvania. He'll line up, and you give me a defensive back, I'll line up Boy, and we'll put some money on it because that kid is the real deal. Keyshawn Robinson from Westinghouse, he's been picking up SEC offers. That's a kid to always be on the lookout for. I mean, Lamon Bates, he's another 2027 kid. He's a running back down at Westinghouse. He's a kid to be on the lookout for. He's a freshman. He's tearing up at running back. And the last kid I'd like to speak about in the city is Zaire Stevenson. He just received his first offer from Temple. Congratulations to X. That's my guy. I really love his game, really respect him. He's a heck of a competitor. And Zaire Stevenson down at USO, that's a guy you want to look out for all season. So those are just some players to keep an eye out for. And, those were the power rankings and this week's players to watch. That's all we got for you today. We had a guest, Mark Lyons. We had the guest, Central Valley players. Finished it with my power rankings. Thank you to tuning in to the first ever episode of PA Today and Friends. We were live here at the Monaca Brewing Company. We had a full house. It's empty now. We're wrapping the show. But thank you for tuning in to this edition of PA Today and Friends. We'll see you next week. My name is John Magusiak, and we'll be back next week.